These are the 2008 to 2010 Orion VII Next Gen hybrids, the third Orion VII hybrids, the fourth low-floor buses, and the sole order of Orion VII Next Gens for New York City Transit, and the second order of buses for MTA Bus. Now their fleet numbers range from 3800 to 4702, while the MTA Bus fleet numbers range from 4020 to 4655, with 3800 to 3959 being 2008 models, 3960 to 4019, along with 4032 to 4228, and 4230 to 4278, as well as 4020 to 4039, and 4140 to 4169, along with 4330 to 4482, and 4513 to 4630, along with 4483 to 4512, being 2009 models, and 4656 to 4702, as well as 4631 to 4655, being 2010 models. Now 1292, along with 1294 to 1295, were the first three demos to be delivered and tested in Queens for local service at a Baisley Park depot in 2007. Then, 1292 was sold to Bay Systems in Endicott, New York, then later resold to Broome County Transit, while 1294 was sent to Roosevelt Island Operating Corporation as Bus 7, while 1295 would end up being sold to MTB Transit Solutions in Milton, Ontario. So, without further ado, let's hit the list of depots that received New York City Transit's third fleet of Orion VII hybrids. Here we go. So 3800 to 3851 were originally delivered to Castleton Depot, with 3800 to 3899 being sent to Michael J. Quill Depot, and 3830 to 3851 being sent to Manhattanville Depot. 3852 to 3900 were originally delivered to Yukon Depot, with 3852 to 3899 being sent to Manhattanville Depot, and 3900 to 3959 being sent to Michael J. Quill Depot. 3901 to 3959 were delivered to Flatbush Depot, while 3960 to 4019 were delivered to Castleton Depot. 4040 to 4091 were delivered to Gun Hill Depot, while 4092 to 4139 were delivered to Yukon Depot. 4170 to 4219 were delivered to Casey Stengel Depot, while 4220 to 4244 were delivered to Flatbush Depot. 4245 to 4278 were delivered to Castleton Depot, while 4330 to 4407 were delivered to Kingsbridge Depot. 4408 to 4430 were delivered to Gun Hill Depot, while 4431 to 4482 were delivered to Jamaica Depot. 4513 to 4570 were delivered to Grand Avenue Depot, while 4571 to 4630 were delivered to Flatbush Depot. 4656 to 4700 were delivered to Jamaica Depot, while last but not least, 4701 to 4702 were delivered to Grand Avenue Depot. Now, let's hit the list of depots that received MTA Bus's second fleet of Orion VII hybrids and first and sole fleet of Orion VII Next Gens. Here we go. So 4020 to 4039 were delivered to LaGuardia Depot, formerly known as Trotboro Coach, while 4140 to 4169 were delivered to JFK Depot, formerly known as Green Bus Lines. 4483 to 4512 were also delivered to LaGuardia Depot, while last but not least, 4631 to 4655 were delivered to JFK Depot. So these Orion VII NGs are a lot different from the units from previous deliveries. Unlike the Orion VII old gens, these came with a variety of new and noticeable features, such as a complete redesign of the exterior and interior, which was to meet the EPA standards at the time. The Orion VII Next Gens feature a new slanted front end, eliminating the slanted window, new headlights and destination signs, as well as new styled windows and rear end, giving it a rather streamlined appearance. Like the Orion VII old gens, 3800 to 3959 feature Hawker XT lead-acid batteries, while 3960 to 4702 feature lithium-ion batteries. These also feature American Seating 6468 with padded inserts and stop-requested pull cords. So these Orion VII NGs were built under the model number 07.501, with the 7 indicating the model of the bus, 501 indicating that the length is 40 feet, HEV indicating that the bus is a hybrid electric vehicle, and NG standing for Next Generation, of course. And these Orion 7 NGs signify the use of the Cummins ISB engine in the Bay hybrid drive system, which sounds like this. No, I'm not alone in this review. Allow me to introduce my friends and fellow bus fans, Sonic 57053 and Vulnerable Toyota. And let's hear what they have to say.
What's up, guys? This is your boy Sonic 57053 here to give you my thoughts and opinions about the 2008 to 2010 Orion 7 Next Gens. So, the first time I remember riding these buses was back in I'd say the summer of 2009, and it was on the Q3 to 165th Street Terminal, and boy, the ride was smooth as hell. I remember the first time, hearing the rear door announcements, and this was just one step forward for the MTA to, go into the future with the auto announcements for the buses. Now, I still ride these Next Gens till this very day, and once they retire, they will be all gone. So, what do I think about these buses? Well, they're decent, they're a good fleet, but many people just hate them for other reasons, being their performance, and the fact that they have to replace the remaining GMC RTSs and the way they look, which is kind of my speculation. But another thing that I like about these Next Gens is the way how they sound when they take off. Boy, oh boy. Who knew a bus like that would be powered with a hybrid drive, especially with the old gens? And since late 2020, Next Gens have been coming to MTA Bus from Manhattan to JFK Depot to replace the remaining 2004 to 05 old gens. And from what I've heard, starting from, I believe, towards the end of this year till moving on to next year in 2022, they will be sending all of the remaining lithium-ion battery Next Gens to MTA Bus. And then once they're all gone, there will be nothing but a memory. So these Next Gens, they have a special place in my heart, and I just feel like, New York City Transit should just preserve at least one Next Gen for the museum fleet, because then transit fanners from the future would not know what a Next Gen is. So that's all of my thoughts and opinions about the Orion 7 Next Gens, and a few updates about the retirement. But anyways, that's all I have to say. With that being said, I'm Sonic 57053, and I'm going to take you back to Kal-El Johnson.
Happy holidays, New York City transit community, and welcome to the contribution of Kal-El's Daimler Chrysler Orion VII Next Generation Hybrids. And this is to showcase my opposite likings of how Kal-El likes this bus. These Orion 7s from Daimler Chrysler were my most favorites since I was only 6 years old in 2009. When these started being delivered a year before then, they were looked at as the buses of the future. This thought results from their exterior windows being frameless, the interior announcements being automated with yellow cords against the window frames, the powertrain sounding so clean and robotic, and the rear of the bus designed to be a dystopian template of what a future hybrid could be like. By June 2010, I rode my first next gen on the B41 with my dad as a wish came true. And I also rode these on the B46 route back and forth sometimes. And it was just hard to catch due to the high volumes of the RTS's Flatbush Depot had, that those routes are based out of. 3 years later, my nearest route, the B7 route, was given up to Fresh Pond Depot after East New York had it for 10 years since 2002. This results in me seeing the next generation hybrids taking over the line alongside the RCSs and the old generation hybrids Fresh Pond had. That's another unexpected wish I had until I attended middle school next to this route. Since I attended middle school of King's Collegiate Charter School, I took this bus to school many times during my 4 years until 2017. And years before 2016, when I became an Excelsior fan, I always wanted to ride a next generation hybrid more times than any other bus. By 2018, there is a mind change problem I got from many MTA fans. The next generation hybrids are the most despicable buses in our current fleet. This was because they hated the design, the engine sounds atrocious, they claim to break down most, and they get into many accidents whenever it's either the operator's fault or not. And the most recognizable one is when a new operator from Fresh Pond Depot left her bus unattended, causing it to roll backwards via Palmetto Street into a church in Ridgewood. All of that is untrue to me because I couldn't see those alone. In regards to hatred, we had 12% of the Orion 7 Next Generation fleet that retired early, though they were proposed to be retired by 2023 through 2024. And I had an operator point of view at some time since I joined the MTA squad in 2017 because of my uncle. 3911 was my very first Next Generation hybrid I had driven for 2 miles around the depot. And accelerating the bus feels like driving a Mercedes CL Class Coupe from the early 2000s. And I drove some others once in a while during my first 2 years at Quill. And after Quill, I moved to East New York in May 2019 to first drive 4554. This was a short while after East New York started receiving these next gens in early July of 2019. Speaking of East New York, when they had the old gen hybrids together like any other depots, they had better propulsion sounds than the next gens. Overall, these are my favorite Orion buses out of all the Orion bus history within the MTA. And I sure will severely miss these, just like the old gens that are retiring deeply now. So with that this is the end of my contribution. Happy holidays, and taking you back to the big genius, Kal-El Johnson.
As for these Orion 7 NGs, they're a pretty good fleet. They're decent for the most part, with the exception of some nitpicks and criticism from some passengers, drivers, mechanics, and of course transit and bus fans. But overall, they're well received by the public. And to clear the air with everybody, even though I'm not crazy about the next gens, there is no hatred between me and these Orion 7s at all. So those of you who are wondering, do me a favor and, shut up! Though I'm not gonna lie, I do prefer the old gen hybrids and CNGs, but it is what it is. I still remember the first time I ever saw one of these. I remember I was like, holy shit! But as the years went by, they slowly grew on me. As you can see, many of these units were later given the decal scheme and were also the first to be delivered with the white back, which I personally dislike. Though on the other hand, it does look decent when it's clean, and some were also given rather funky alternative schemes, as well as funky looking headlights. And before I forget, some units were given the select bus service wraps for the S79. With the retirement of the remaining old gens, several of these NGs were sent to MTA Bus to bolster their fleet for the time being. With the arrival of the new Novas and Excelsiors, and with the restrictions of COVID-19, more are expected to be sent to push out the remaining old gens within the next few months. Though we still have plenty of time until it's time to say farewell to these NGs, the retirement for some is almost around the corner. But I'd like to see what the future holds for these Orion 7s. And I'm sure once that day comes, they'll always be remembered as New York City Transit's fourth and MTA Bus Company's second order of Orion 7 hybrids. So as for these Orion 7 Next Gens, enjoy them while they're still around, because before you know it, they'll be out of here. But don't worry, at least we have the model NGs to remember them by when the time comes. So with that being said, this is Kal-El saying stay safe, stay well, have a happy holidays, happy new year, and of course thanking you guys for watching.